Good afternoon, everybody. It's really great to see such a fantastic turnout for Dr. Andreas Stamatis and students and colleagues from around the country. Welcome to the Institute for Ethics in Public Life. My name is Jonathan Slater. I am the director of the Ethics Institute at SUNY Plattsburgh, and ordinarily, this would be the last colloquy of the academic year of the semester, but we like to make a good thing even better. We had an extra colloquy, of course, during the spring break, which wasn't a spring break for us here at SUNY Plattsburgh, and we're going an extra week simply because we want to hear from Dr. Ray Johnson next week with his annual climate update, and we can't have an academic year at the Ethics Institute without Ray Johnson's climate update. So we're looking forward to that. And if you can sneak away from your final exam schedule, we'd love to see you here next Wednesday at noon, which will be the final colloquy of the semester. There will be additional activities over the course of the summer. So watch your email, watch the Campus Digest. And if you're following the Facebook page for the Institute, follow the Facebook page, keep it, keep yourself updated about what we're going to be doing. All of the colloquies and capsule conversations, basically going back to the beginning of the health emergency after March 2020, are all available on YouTube. And you can access those either through the Facebook page, or if you need a link from me, just email me and I'll be happy to send you the link to the playlist of colloquies and capsule conversations at the Institute. Today, I am extraordinarily delighted that leading the colloquy will be past fellow, esteemed colleague, Dr. Andreas Stamatis. And in addition to being a highly admired teacher here on campus, Andreas is an active and productive scholar. Also he is an associate professor in our sport and wellness program here on campus. He's also the director of undergraduate studies there and the lab director. I think I've got that all correct. So I'm going to, before I pose my sort of leading questions to Andreas, I am going to I'm going to ask Andreas to, first of all, introduce, we have, I believe, 3 students with us today to talk about their undergraduate research. And we have colleagues from around the country. And I'll kindly ask you, Andreas, to introduce the students and our esteemed colleagues who are our guests here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Yeah, I was a past fellow, and as Jonathan said, once a fellow, also always a fellow. So here we are today talking about a topic that is really dear to me, undergraduate research and its importance. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Jonathan, for inviting me. I see a lot of chairs, a lot of colleagues, a lot of stuff, but I want to especially thank the 3 students. We have Arriana Patraw here, and she participated at the regional Greater New York ACSM chapter competition in the fall. She won the President's Cup, and she's going to represent the whole chapter in the national conference in June. So that was really big for us in our small department. We also have Lindsay Guzzetta, and Lindsay Guzzetta did something else, which she's again an undergrad, and she did something very exceptional. It's the first time that we submitted a proposal and it got funded. So she's bringing funds to our department to actually do research, and that's pretty amazing as well. And also we have Lauren Chin, who's not a student anymore, but Lauren has another story. She emailed me at some point. She was like, I'm in the psychology department. I want to take your sports psych class. I think it's very interesting. I'm like, okay, I mean, we have a spot, come in. So then we collaborated. We did research on EEG. She presented it at APA in 2019. And then she will tell her story. She will explain how that helped her get a research position after that. And very, very recently, how that helped her get accepted in Johns Hopkins, and she's starting in August. So congratulations, Lauren. So all these people have actively participated in undergrad research, and today they're gonna explain a little bit what they were involved and how that helped them or not in their future. Also, we have some especially dear friends that I invited to form a kind of panel and talk about undergrad research from their perspective. I have Dr. Grandjean, who's a dean and a professor at an R1 institution, or MES. I know him from my days at Baylor, and it's a great honor to have him here because he can talk to us from both perspectives, as an academic and as an administrator as well. We have Grant Morgan from Baylor, who was my mentor during my PhD. And I actually gave the wrong information. He's not the chair anymore. He got promoted. He is the associate dean of research. So congratulations for that, Grant. So he has a chance again to talk about undergrad research as an academic, but also as an administrator. And then Dr. Papadakis, Zach, my fellow Greek roommates at Baylor. He's now at Baylor University in Florida, but he has also taught at an R1 institution at Rice. So he's very active in undergrad research, so he has a lot to share. And then a colleague from our institution, Lisa. Lisa is an adjunct in our department, and she's also the associate head athletic trainer. And I have found in Lisa an unexpected ally in research because she has helped a lot with her expertise, especially in clinical case studies. And that's very important for some students as well. So thank you, Lisa. So that's a small introduction. I want to thank everybody who's here today. And if it's okay, Jonathan, I can start with my presentation and say a couple words.
Okay, yeah, that would be great. Why don't you share your, I think you can share your slides, you're a co-host. So I just wanted to, first of all, welcome our guests and welcome everybody else again. The way that this will work is Andreas will do a brief presentation. We'll have our students talk a little bit, and then we'll invite Andreas to interact with our guest colleagues here today. We're going to run this because there's a lot to cover. We're going to run this colloquy 15 minutes beyond the 1 o'clock hour to 1:15, a little bit unusual, but I wanted to give Andreas and everyone with him a chance to speak at some length. So go ahead, Andreas. The question actually that I guess you're going to answer in this presentation is that the title of your colloquy today is Strengthening American Society Through Undergraduate Research. And of course, that's very relevant to the work that we do here at the Institute, because the Academy, as we know, and this is something that founding director Tom Moran has emphasized year after year, is that the Academy is intimately connected to the success of our democracy, but also to the success of our students becoming productive and fully participating students in society. So I imagine that you're going to lead us in that direction. So anyhow, go ahead. I've said enough.
Yes. So thanks again for being here. Yes, that's the main question. And what we're trying to cover today is, first of all, we all know why we need some specific workforce skills for the economy to work. I'm going to present, we know that, but we also have a problem. It seems that employers do not seem to trust the current graduates. And in order to have graduates that have those skills, we need active learning. Research may be the best way to do that. And because faculty mentoring is the cornerstone of that effort, I will try to make a case that the faculty should be supported, because by helping the students get those critical skills, we strengthen the economy, and at the end of the day, we strengthen the US society. So I'll start with some numbers. We have almost 2 million students just from four-year institutions each year. That's a lot of graduates. And let's see the positive side first. 80% of the employers expect students to have these skills: communication, problem solving, critical thinking. Nothing new here. More than 90% of the employers think that those skills are more valuable than the major itself. And that's an important point to make here. Let's go to the not so positive side now. So almost 60% think that the recent graduates do not have those skills for even entry-level positions. And more than 60% think that the recent graduates are not prepared to advance in their companies. So we see that we have an issue. It looks like we are, on average, we're preparing graduates for, I don't know, it doesn't look like we're preparing for what the economy needs right now. So in order to get those skills and prepare those students to be active members of the workforce, we can do that through active learning, and research is one of the best ways to do that. Why? Because the students need to learn how to understand a problem, identify a problem, find the alternatives, pick one solution, test it, fix it, evaluate it, go back. Problem solving skills, also known as executive functioning. We know all these things, but also you see that employers talk about soft skills like perseverance, communication, collaboration, and confidence. So having that in mind, we continue by saying how, well, let's see how employers see it. So 87%, vast majority of employers think they want to hire students who have been part of undergrad research. Why? Again, critical thinking, motivations and persistence, and confidence. And students want to be a part of undergrad research because they think that after doing that, they're better at formulating their own ideas, clarify what they want to do upon graduation. It's been proven that it helps them remain in school and not drop out. And that helps them, of course, having stronger applications towards grad school. Now, for us, it is important, and I'm going to stop here. I'm going to come back to my presentation. I'm going to ask, first of all, from Arriana to talk a little bit about what she did. And so pretty much three things. I would like her to present what she presented and how she won. I would like her to present her research and then tell us a little bit what kind of skills she thinks she gained during this process and how those skills she thinks they're going to help her in the future. So I'm going to start with Arriana, then I'm going to go to Lindsay, and then I'm going to go to Lauren. I want to say that we have a pretty small department, and we've been trying really hard with undergrad research. We've won the President's Cup for ACSM twice now. And we got the funding with Lindsay, which was huge for us. We went to Texas with 16 abstracts in the middle of the pandemic. We're putting a lot of effort, a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of resources towards undergrad research. So I want to give these students the opportunity to talk a little bit, and so we can congratulate them and for all their successes. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I would like Arriana to share her screen and talk a little bit about what she did, what kind of skills she developed, and how does she think she can take those skills and transfer them to whatever she wants to do in the future.
All right, so my name again is Arriana Patraw. I'm finishing up my third year at SUNY Plattsburgh studying fitness and wellness leadership, and I'm going to be presenting this poster. So the COVID-19 pandemic, can optimism reduce anxiety? This is a 5-way study of people with chronic illness. So we all know of the coronavirus disease. It's referred to as COVID-19. If infected, most people just experience that mild to moderate respiratory illness and recover. But individuals with chronic disease are at increased risk for severe health complications. So positive psychology has been combined with rehabilitation psychology to support people with chronic illness and disabilities. So the purpose of our study was to examine the association of optimism and anxiety in people living with chronic illness and disability from before to during the COVID-19 pandemic. So again, we had 5 waves of data that took place. That's a pretty significant amount of data. 3 pre-pandemic starting September 2019, 2 into the pandemic ending June 2020. And we used the generalized anxiety disorder 7-item scale. What that is it's 7 questions where participants rate their anxiety on a scale from 0 to 3. And then we also use the life orientation test, which was revised for optimism. And this is 6 questions. Each question is answered using another scale, 0 meaning they strongly disagree, 4 meaning they strongly agree. And we did use a Qualix panel to complete these surveys. And what that does is it allows you to send surveys to a targeted population of respondents. And in our case, we were targeting participants who are 18 or older, had at least 1 chronic disease, and of course, they had to have internet access to do the surveys. So over here, you can see our results. This is for anxiety and this is for optimism. So this line here represents the shift of pre-pandemic to into the pandemic. As you can see, when the pandemic hit, there was a slight increase in anxiety. It's likely that as individuals grew a little more comfortable with the pandemic, those levels dropped back down to normal. So although the means of optimism and anxiety, they do fluctuate slightly after the onset of COVID, average levels of optimism were relatively high, anxiety was relatively low, and the relationship was stable across time. So our findings do then confirm the direction of the association between optimism and anxiety in people with chronic illness and disability from before to during the COVID-19 pandemic. So as reported levels of optimism increase, reported levels of anxiety decrease, and the strength of that negative relationship remain relatively stable during a pandemic. So with that being said, interventions targeting optimism could have immediate implications for initiating psychological distress during the public health crisis, particularly among these vulnerable populations like those with chronic illness and disabilities. Thank you. And just to answer your question about how I think this will help me in the future and stuff, presenting this research, it's already opened up a door of new possibilities for me, like presenting here today. And it's made me realize the importance of taking advantage of every opportunity I have. And it's really just pushed me to work through my own struggles with anxiety. So it's been really helpful for me.
Thank you. So was it a positive experience for you?
It was definitely a positive experience, yeah. I definitely had my challenges with the public speaking and overcoming anxiety, but it paid off and I'm so glad I did it.
So you ready for the national?
I'm ready. This was good practice, so.
I'll just bring it home. Bring it home. Thanks, Arriana. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Lindsay, if you're ready and you can share your screen. So Lindsay, again, it's something that has never happened for our department. She submitted a grant proposal and which got accepted. So we're getting funded to do something pretty unique. And we're going to talk about it right now. Whenever you're ready.
Okay, so I'm Lindsay Guzzetta, and I am currently a sophomore here. So our study basically focused on female student athletes, how their mental health had declined due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and because their athletic seasons were suspended. So we're looking to improve their mental health by improving their mental toughness. And since there's a correlation between mental toughness and mental health outcomes, we're looking to do an educational-based psychological skills training in order to enhance that mental toughness in our athletes. Our study is going to be the first one to show if there's effectiveness in telehealth educational-based psychological skill training to increase mental toughness. And our study will focus primarily on 40 female student athletes 20 being competing and 20 non-competing. And then they'll be subdivided into 4 groups, one being the controlled group of 10 competing and 10 non-competing, and then the treatment group who will be receiving the treatment will be 10 competing and 10 non-competing. Our results will be self-evaluated. Well, mental health and mental toughness scores will be self-evaluated using 2 instruments, the mental toughness index and the mental health continuum. And that will be known as assessment 1. So that will take place in the first week. And then we'll have an intervention lasting 6 weeks. And it'll be every week the treatment group will receive a video, and then at the end of all those 6 videos, the last week, we will do the same assessment as assessment 1, following the same protocols. And we're anticipating that the mental toughness and mental health scores will improve after the total of these 8 weeks. And that physical activity, by doing physical activity and doing the telehealth psychological skill training will improve their mental toughness and mental health. And then, to be honest with you guys, this was very stressful for me, just because I was in the midst of, I'm a student athlete here. So I was in the midst of my season, and we were practicing 6 days a week, starting games eventually. So it definitely was very stressful and overwhelming for me. And this was my first type of competition, to this magnitude. So it was overwhelming, but I'm extremely grateful for this opportunity, because I think it helped me grow as a student and as a person, because by doing this, I could really find out how to present information to people, because it's one way to know what you're talking about, but it's another to tell it to people that they understand it. So I think by doing this, it really helped me create an oral presentation and be clear and conscious with all my thoughts. So I'm very thankful that Andreas had given me this opportunity, and I think it will help me in the future.
Thank you, Lindsay. I appreciate it. Well, now we actually have to do it.
Yeah.
So Lindsay has to go back in the fall meeting and present the results of this. So it was one thing winning it and getting the money to do it. Now we actually have to. Thank you, Lindsay. So we're going to move to the third student, former student, this one, Lauren. So whenever you're ready, talk to us a little bit about what we did and how that helped you moving to that research position, and how that helped you now getting into Johns Hopkins.
Yeah, absolutely. Took me a little while to find my poster. It's been quite some time since I looked at it. So let me get this up. All right, can everybody see that? So okay. So as Dr. Stamatis mentioned, my name is Lauren Chin. I graduated from SUNY Plattsburgh in 2019. So it's been some time since I've been up in Plattsburgh. During my time there, I worked on a project looking at changes in brain activity during exercise in Black and African American female student athletes on campus. So this is our poster here. So this experience, it challenged me in a lot of ways. It definitely pushed me out of my comfort zone. It taught me to work collaboratively with other students as well as other professors. We were able to kind of bridge the gap between the fitness and wellness department as well as the psychology department. And at the time I was taking 20 credits, but it was worth it. I wanted to do it. I wanted to be part of this research. As Dr. Stamatis mentioned, I emailed him, begging him to let me into his class, because at the time I was a psychology major, and I couldn't take the sports psych class without being in the fitness and wellness department. So I asked him, please let me into class. I want to learn so badly about sports psych. And he reached out to me about this opportunity, and I was just blown away, extremely excited. I didn't think that, I knew about research, but I never really knew how to get involved. And so this was a perfect opportunity for me. And so I attribute a lot of my success since graduation to my undergrad research experience. I think right after I graduated, and I'm not exaggerating when I say right after, the day after I finished school, I packed my car and I moved to Washington, D.C., where I got a job as a clinical research assistant at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. And there I was able to lead a handful of projects working with military veterans on PTSD, TBI, just a handful of things associated with the military. And I spent about a year working as a research assistant and was able to move on to my current position, which is a clinical study coordinator. And I've been working in this position for about 7 months. And right now I am working on a phase 1 clinical trial, doing some chronic traumatic encephalopathy research with the veterans who have experienced some traumatic brain injury due to combat. And as Dr. Stamatis mentioned, in the fall, I'll be starting a master's program with Johns Hopkins. And this experience just from doing research in undergrad, it really gave me all of the tools to be successful in my professional life. Every single day I use the tools that I learned in undergrad when it comes to recruitment and communicating with other, with my PIs, with other professionals, my participants, and I'm extremely, extremely grateful for this opportunity. And for the current students, you will go very, very far with your experience, and I'm excited to see where you go with it. So thank you for inviting me to speak. It's very happy to be here. I miss Plattsburgh, I miss the community.
Thank you, Lauren. It makes me so happy to see you grow so much. And as I told you in my last email, don't forget me when you become famous and rich. Okay?
Of course not.
That is in Plattsburgh. Okay, just saying out loud. All right, I'll go ahead and thank you all three of you. And a small comment before I go back to my presentation. Undergrad research has been found to really empower underrepresented groups. And in applied sports psychology, female researchers are really underrepresented. And it's not a coincidence that today we have 3 female students killing it and being the women that they are, strong, smart, and just amazing. So I just wanted to make that side note about another benefit of undergrad research. So thank you all 3. I'm just gonna go ahead and share again my presentation and finish it up. So let me see. All right. I'm going to throw in a couple of terms now. Undergrad research is one of the most recognized high impact practices, HIP. And also there's another acronym here, URSCA, Undergrad Research Scholarship and Creative Activity. That's what I was trying to do, right? So there has been some developments lately. We see URSCA in all kinds of institutions, from liberal arts all the way to 2-year institutions. And also a third acronym, I promise I'm not gonna throw more, CURES. So we see that there's a shift in the model from 1-1 apprentice to go to curricula that have a lot of options, such as course-based undergrad research experiences, or as also known as CURES. Now, important thing here after that is to understand that URSCA is based on faculty mentorship. And the big question as we move towards the next slides is, should that mentorship be valued as a standard component of workload and be formally included in activity reports and evaluations? And I would like later on Dr. Grandjean and Dr. Morgan to address this question. Now, the value is well recognized, and from the faculty perspective, I'm going to talk from the faculty perspective, benefits both students and faculty because it produces new knowledge. It builds identity with your discipline, develops ties between the faculty mentor and the mentoree. Through the apprenticeship model, we have, we as faculty could move our programs forward, our scholarly programs, and definitely it brings satisfactions. I hope you see how much how much I was smiling when all these 3 students were sharing their success stories. It definitely brings satisfaction to the faculty. Now, institutions invest, but let's see how faculty see that. Faculty, based on research, see the investment from the institution to happen, but for reasons of marketing, recruitment, and grant funding. So faculty believe that they need more support to do what they're trying to do. Although we also identify that working with undergrads, and I'm sure all of us can testify that, may slow down our own lines of research. Now, the growth of URSCA is bigger than the valuation of faculty working towards that. So faculty believe that we don't have enough policies adopted. We do it mainly for the students' sake and our own personal satisfaction. And there are many constraints, time being the number one, coming out from surveys that faculty have filled out. And so if it was in a way built into the faculty workload, most likely faculty could do more. Also, faculty report that there are resources a lot of times that support undergrad students to get involved into this, but there's not so much financial support for the faculty to be involved into this. My last slide for today are some common challenges that we see. There are surveys out there and research that shows that not even faculty agree about how deep we should recognize the mentorship. Some faculty say, okay, it's not that important. Other faculty say it's very important. Of course, what we see is that faculty that has been involved in undergrad research think it's more important than the other faculty. We need to agree on what it is. Is it teaching? Is it research? Is it service? Is it 2 out of 3? Is it all 3? Should we have another category as Purdue has, which is called undergrad research? What is it exactly? Because if we don't know how we're going to describe it, then we don't really know how to evaluate it. The curriculum adjustment is a big issue with undergrad research. There are ways that has happened in some schools. There are 4-year theses, so they're trying to build it in. There are capstone projects. There are creative ways to do it, as long as the administration would like to support and help. And of course, we go into the fourth one. If we accept it into tenure, that's a great way to support faculty, and pretty much it has nothing to do with financial support. When it comes to financial support, a lot of times administration may resist even more, especially in this environment. So how can we do it? Is it, are we giving the faculty 1, 2, 3 credits per semester to do undergrad research? Can we find a creative way to help them and support them if we think it's important and if we think that their role is crucial for this specific, whatever we're going to call it, service, teaching, research part of their job? And that's, with those questions, I'm going to stop. This is my last slide. The American, the US economy has to remain strong. In order to remain strong, in order to do that, it has to be able to solve current and future problems. In order to do that, we need the newer generations, the younger generations, to have the skills to do it. Undergrad research can really, really help doing that. And if we strengthen the economy, at the end of the day, we're going to strengthen the whole society. So since faculty mentorship is so crucial for undergrad research, my point here is we should be supported even more. And I'm going to leave it here. Jonathan?
Yeah, thanks, Andreas. Why don't we invite our esteemed colleagues who've come from around the country, who you introduced earlier, to join us and respond. Would that be a way to proceed, Andreas? Should we do that?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So
I'll start with Dr. Grandjean. So Dr. Grandjean, you are the dean in R1 institution, and you've been also the dean at Baylor, and you've been in a position that you have supported undergrad research as an academic, but also now you have an administrative position that you could potentially help faculty support undergrad research. My questions for you are basically two. Do you believe in the value of undergrad research? And does OMIS do anything to support faculty that is involved in undergrad research?
Great questions, and I really appreciated the issues that you brought up, Andreas, with respect to undergraduate research and how we view that as an institution, how we recognize it and appreciate it. And of course, we support undergraduate research and are trying to think of ways that we can support those endeavors. Some of the things that were demonstrated remarkably in the three presentations that we just saw were the fact that those projects and your mentorship, as well as the co-authors and then the students, those projects represented critical thinking, and they represented what you called active learning or experiential learning, which you just cannot get in the classroom. You think about data acquisition and all the dimensions that go into that, data management, analysis of that data, interpreting the data, visualization. Each of those had graphics or charts, and the visualization, and then the ability to communicate all of that. It's remarkable, those activities, and it's critically needed at the undergraduate level, not just the graduate level. What we're trying to do is not just create researchers, and those that certainly the young ladies that presented here today would be well qualified to continue their career in graduate studies, but perhaps that's not the line or the lane or the passion that they have. They leave then with the ability to make decisions. First of all, interpret, the things that they read and the information that they get, but to make decisions either in the absence of data, right? Or when there's just a preponderance, a wealth of data, almost information overload, and the ability to make those decisions and to do that is taught and experienced through these projects that you've so well constructed. The other thing that I would point out, and the reason why it's valuable, is because all of those activities that we just described cannot be done in a vacuum. They have to be done collaboratively. And when you take all of that information and you put it together and you have a team that is able to discuss, you see this information from different viewpoints and are able to ascertain importance that you wouldn't ordinarily as an individual. So what I want to say is absolutely it's valued. How do we do this here is maybe quite similar to other institutions, might be quite different. Trying to establish internal funding mechanisms to support, or seed funding to support pilot work and get students involved. But not just as lead researchers, this requires, some training and rubbing elbows with other students. So it's peer mentoring. I think you've mentioned some of that. It's mentoring from graduate students in those institutions that have graduate students. It's trying to foster and facilitate that. We have an honors college here that is a wonderful way to support undergraduate research because it requires a thesis or or creative work as a capstone experience. So, I hope I've answered the question, do we value it and why we value it, and then some of the mechanisms by which we support it. I will say one last thing and then let you hand the mic to someone else, and that is the question about how you recognize that in terms of tenure and promotion, or how you recognize that in terms of scholarly work or productivity, I think is a very deep one, and one that institutions will have to solve individually because of their mission, their vision, and their values. But I will say that I think it's critical that we and I use the term critical, but I think it's critical that we embed the research process in our curriculum, and that is part of our coursework, and part of our coursework at an early stage in the academic experience. So I think it's critical there. I think it's critical that we internally support and fund research projects so that we can embed that in the curriculum. And I really like the Purdue model that you mentioned, and that is including undergraduates, because without that, you're right. We're developing relationships. We're developing long-standing relationships. It does take effort. It does take time outside of the normal classroom walls to develop those relationships and nurture that experience and make people feel like they belong, that they're accepted, and that their ideas are valuable. So I like the Purdue model that recognizes specific undergraduate research as part of the continuum in the research enterprise. So with that, I'll sign off. I hope I've added something to the conversation.
You definitely did. Thank you, Dr. Grandjean. Dr. Morgan, I would like you to tell us a couple of things about how are things at Baylor. So again, the same two questions: do you value undergrad research, and what do you do to support it?
Yeah, it is a great question. And, at the moment, I wish you had asked me before Dean Grandjean, because I have a lot of the same things to say. So as he was wrapping up, I was thinking of some way to add something new, because so many of the underlying components of what he had to say are I absolutely agree with. I won't say they're absolutely true. I'll say I absolutely agree with them. So at least we're starting to have some triangulation here. The short answer is absolutely. Undergraduate research is valuable for many of the reasons that Dean Grandjean mentioned, not the least of which is developing as early as possible really strong thinking skills. In my experience, many of the people who engage in research are applying things that they do just in everyday life, which is being curious and noticing things. We don't always call it collecting data, but paying attention to what's going on around us is very much data collection. And we figure out what to do with that in order to make decisions. This is very much about decision-making and agency. So as I think about what I do in my own classes, first of all, I absolutely agree that research should be integrated into undergraduate curricula. I think, I won't get too much on my soapbox, I think a philosophy of science course would be very, very beneficial also, as just a way of thinking, because science is given labels like rigorous and good and all these other superlatives, but there's quite a lot of research that's also rigorous and good that we need equally as much. So I'm not going to get into a philosophical diatribe on science and non-science and research method, but I think where knowledge comes from has enormous implication for how we engage questions. And we don't have to agree on it, we just have to be consistent. And when I ask students of mine why you're here, this is at all levels, why are you here? Of course, a lot of students say, this is a required class. And I say, okay, yeah, I mean, that's true. Why are you enrolled in a program that requires a course like this one? Why? I find that 9 times out of 10, students want to make the world better in some way. They want to make the world better. And they believe that through education and engaging these kinds of important issues for them, it will give them the skills that they need to make the world better. And I just try to extend that. In order to make the world better, we need to understand it. And the way we understand it is through asking questions and collecting data and making decisions based on data, whether the data support our initial suspicions or not. But we're making data-based decisions so that we can have agency in our world to make it better, to make it the place that we believe it should be. So, how does Baylor do that? Similarly, we have some internal funding mechanisms. Now, Baylor's mascot is the bear, so many of the programs have bear-related names. So we have an undergraduate research and scholarly achievement, URSA. So we have this URSA program that funds undergraduate research and scholarly activity. So it's intended, as Dean Grandjean mentioned, to provide seed funding for getting students involved in research, to pursue some ideas and really get the mentoring that they need. As I mentioned, I think a lot of people naturally are curious and notice things around them. And in order to conduct research, we have to focus those skills on some specific areas and figure out ways that we can do that, and then effectively communicate our findings through dissemination. That could be through many, many outlets. And of course, some of those are more common in academic circles. And that's a whole other topic of conversation, is how we most effectively impact the field through our dissemination of research. But so that's what we do at Baylor. Many of us invite students to get involved on projects. I think it's good, quite frankly, for students at any age to see a faculty member go, I don't really know. Let's figure it out together. I don't know what the experiences of others were like, but I know when I defended my dissertation, I wasn't all of a sudden ye of infinite wisdom of all things. I answer most questions with, Andreas knows, well, it depends. It depends on the available data, and it depends on a lot of things. And I think that's a good thing for students to see, is like, we don't always have the answers, but we have a framework and a mechanism we can use to go in search of the data that will help us answer those questions, to ultimately have the kind of agency that we all want and believe we should have.
Thank you, Dr. Morgan. That was great. I appreciate it. I'll move to Dr. Papadakis. So he's at Baylor University now, a D2 school. He used to be at Rice, R1 school. He's a big proponent of undergraduate research. I know he spends a lot of time and energy mentoring many abstracts in each conference he's able to go, especially American College of Sports Medicine. So my question for you, Zach, is why do you value undergraduate research and you're into that so much? And if you're getting the support that you need, and if not, what would you like to receive in order to do more of this?
Hi, everybody, and thanks so much for having me. I think it's very difficult to go and cover the topic, especially if Dr. Grandjean is before you, because he was my mentor at Baylor, so he covered everything on that perspective. And then Dr. Morgan as well set everything up on the perspective of the administration. So I would like to raise some concerns and cover the topic on the aspect of the faculty, especially the junior faculty, and how we perceive it and what kind of support we get. So definitely the workforce needs dynamic that actually has a critical thinking, okay, can actually get the problems solved really fast and quick, because time is money in the workforce. And when we go from the model that we teach the topics like lecturing in class, it's a sterile process. So we lose this dynamic interaction with the students. We lose this moment that they sit back, think about the process, and ask the why, okay? And always I lecture my class with always why we do this, why we do that. I'm like a young kid that always has these questions. And the only way to answer this through research process, observation, okay, and try to see, okay, with the available data that we have, how we can answer these questions. So as a faculty member that I was hired to go to RISE and actually to revive the research lab and get students to symposiums, I figured that there's the old school and the new school. The old school of administration with the new school of administration that actually thinks that actually research is important even at the undergrad level. Because being at RISE, and now run issue the Harvard of South, as we would like to call it, is that we actually get money with the graduate research, okay, grant funding. So the undergraduate research doesn't get any funding. So the undergraduate research is somehow funded through other resources that they may be coming from the graduate funding, or maybe from the faculty that they try to create connections with the workforce. So when I went to RISE, my very first year, I took probably 10 students, undergrad students, to the Texas conference, Texas chapter of the American College of Sports Medicine. We won an award my first year. We had projects in collaboration with the Cancer Institute at Houston. We had collaboration with doctors, networking that previously we didn't have. So all of these students at RISE, they go to med school, pre-med, pre-det, so they PT, they do all these type of classes in order to go to the graduate like medical school. And by getting involved to research, I was able to support them, okay, because I was able to write a nice letter for recommendation that actually covers perspective outside of the classroom setting. I mean, I was able to discuss about their punctuality, okay, their ability to be leaders, okay, team members, the ability to address a problem, okay, when I don't know, maybe the power is out when they do a testing, and then how they have to troubleshoot that stuff. So by doing this, I created a network for my students. I took them to conferences. They were able to shake hands with maybe other professors, other students, okay, and see how other people think about the same problem. So I brought together like two different environments. Coming right now at Berry is like a different dynamic. It's like a school that has a different population, okay? Maybe second generation of students, maybe first generation of graduate students. The majority, they speak 2 or 3 languages, and the English is not like the primary language. So coming over here, I face huge problems trying to change, okay, the orientation of the department, because nobody was doing undergraduate research. Actually, nobody was doing graduate research as for exercise science as well. So imagine my difficulties as a junior faculty, try to lead the Human Performance Laboratory and try to get students, okay, junior students to the lab to do basic testing. I had to create new classes. I had to change the direction of the class. Like, for example, we had the directed readings, and we use this class merely, okay, to take, to cover aspects about certifications. And I was like, why do we use a direct reading as a class while we can have this direct reading class as an actual reading class? So I provided articles, okay, so it's like reading the articles and then try to go over the articles, okay, to discover, okay, why the researchers they did it this way, why they did it another way, based on the exercise physiology lecture that I covered in another class. So I was taking the mere concepts of like exercise phys, human anatomy, exercise testing prescription, and then I was putting this to the articles, and we're discussing the articles. So right now the students are learning the importance of how they connect the theory to the practice and to the research methods. Is it important? Yes, it is. Do we get support? I feel that there's a good process. Purdue model is maybe fantastic, but it depends on like people like Dr. Grandjean and like Morgan that actually they can actually have, okay, the tools to assist the faculty, because the faculty are the ones that actually drive everything. But if we don't have support from the higher levels of the administration, then at some time we feel like bored, tired, okay, that everything we do goes in vain. So yes, it's important, but we do need to have the support, okay, so we can actually like create the new generation of like American students, American like workers that actually have the critical thinking and can actually contribute something like valuable to our society. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Zach. I appreciate it. I'll move to Lisa. So Lisa is an adjunct in our department, but her main job is the athletic trainer. And she has helped so much with research, especially from her side, the clinical case studies, which is a unique way to do research. And especially for those students that want to go towards athletic training, physical therapy, more like a practitioner, clinician route. I would like Lisa to tell me if she sees that value in those students, that the students get that valuable skills with the things that we've done together in the clinical case studies, and if she would like more support if she doesn't have that.
Didn't you hear the last part, Andreas? I'm sorry, cut out.
You need support to do that, and if you don't, what would be enough support for you so you can do more of it?
Okay. As Andreas indicated, I deal more with sports medicine. That's my primary role here on campus. I'm not a researcher per se at all, but I've been involved with our program since its inception. And Andreas came to me, I think 2 years ago or a year ago, asking if I wanted to be involved, and gave me the opportunity to actually work with students on case studies and whatnot that were relevant or interested in terms of the sports medicine aspect of injuries and whatnot that I've seen over the course of years. So, you know, in terms of undergrad research, from the student perspective, everything that Dr. Morgan, Dr. Grandjean, and Papadakis have indicated, the value of communication skills, the opportunity to collaborate with students. We actually did, for the Texas ACSM, we had to coordinate with postgrad students of ours and tie them with some of our undergrad students to present some of the case studies. So it was a real positive experience for everybody involved. And for me to have this opportunity to finally see the department allowing these students and giving them the opportunity to take a study and to move forward with it. And Andreas has been so instrumental with that. And for me personally, it's been a great opportunity to work with students to get more involved with the research aspect. As I said, I deal with sports medicine. It's not something that I do on a day-to-day basis. So it's been just a real positive experience as a mentor to work with these students, and the opportunities that they've had and to watch them get published and win awards and scholarships and things like that are things that they can't learn in the classroom setting. You know, it just definitely brings it up. So I definitely think the value of undergrad research is imperative for moving students to a higher level, the communication, the collaboration, the confidence that Andreas talked about, the self-confidence and whatnot. And so I would like to see that we support the research and allow more opportunities. You know, as we're talking, thinking about some other ones that, you know, we may be able to start adding into the picture and whatnot, but I think it's a win-win for everybody. It's a win for the mentors. I had a wonderful experience working with these students on these various projects. It's a win for the students, and it's a win for the institution because of the acknowledgement that they have received nationally and internationally. So there's I can't think of anything negative about trying to get more research done through our program and through the institution. So I hope I answered your question, Andreas. Again, I'm not research based, so it's the layperson's point of view.
No, you did, and thank you very much.
Andreas, I think what we'll do is we'll open up. We have a little under 15 minutes, and thank you to our distinguished guests, to our students once again. Questions, comments, I would ask you to keep them brief so everyone has a chance to, who has a comment or a question, has a chance to express themselves. Go ahead, Vincent. Yes, unmute yourself and join the conversation.
I have three very, very quick comments to make. The first one would appear negative, the problems of teaching and doing undergraduate research at a small public four-year institution. like many of them nationally struggling financially. Dr. Stamatis knows the difficulties that we both had working together trying to get money for undergraduate research and especially travel. Having said that, I don't want to be negative. My second point is the three students here, Arriana, Lauren, and Lindsay, are utterly inspiring to me. I've seen Dr. Stamatis work with over a dozen now, if not 20 students in this process, and listening to the three of these young people speak with such confidence, acknowledging that the anxiety that they had and how this process helped them overcome it is truly inspiring. And my last comment or point is, given the first problem, given the second advantage, my third point is I feel inspired now as a person on this campus to develop some mechanism with the foundation to find a way, the college foundation, to find a way to fund undergraduate research. We can't do the Purdue model here. We don't have that sort of money. But I'm inspired by these three students and the other 17 or so over the last 4 years to put my shoulder behind the wheel to try to establish a fund in the foundation for undergraduate research. Not student prizes, but money for travel and equipment. Andreas knows the difficulties we had even trying to get equipment over the last 4 or 5 years. So I remember that bike. Is it Lauren? I remember that bike, and I remember all you folks, and it was in my office suite that they were doing all of that. We didn't even have a lab at the time. They were doing it outside my office. It was a wild scene. But my point is, on a positive note, I'm going to put my shoulder to the wheel to try to get some money.
Okay, thank you, Vincent. Deborah, you've been waiting patiently. Go ahead. Unmute yourself.
Sorry, I have a very old computer. Andrea Patraw. I wanted to say that I'm in the anthropology department. We actually have embedded undergraduate research into our program. We have a 2-semester sequence where the first semester we focus on undergraduate methods and ethics of research and students developing how to ask a question worth answering, and then how to respond to that question. We then have the summer where we often have field schools in archaeology or ethnography. And the second semester is students completing their research and developing their final presentation, which they do both orally and written, to the faculty. And each of our students has a faculty mentor. So we really work hard in this undergraduate research process. As anthropology students, we emphasize to them that they have to come out of this experience being able to answer the so what question. When they leave here, they're going to end up applying for a job, and the employer is going to say, you got a degree in anthropology, so what? And they have to be able to answer that question. And I'm really proud of the fact that our students can do that. They can answer that question. And I'm very proud of the fact that our students have done very well in terms of their employment, but also in getting accepted into R1 universities for graduate school. My question is, in this time where the funding for liberal arts colleges like ours is dwindling, and it seems to us that it's not so much what we do, what we offer our students in terms of student support, but how many students we have. And there's a pressure there to do away with the hard courses, because as your undergrads have said, this is a very stressful process. And so there's been pressure on us to simplify our majors, to get away, to eliminate those hard courses, which are the undergrad research courses, in order to try and attract more majors, because it's the number of majors that reflects the quality of the program that we offer. My question to you and our esteemed guests is, how do we approach the administration to say that all of those things that you've said in this colloquy are really valuable, and we should be looking at that kind of quality in what we offer our students rather than how many majors do we have?
Thanks. Andreas, did you want to respond to that, or any of our?
I would just go ahead and go to Joshua, and hopefully we'll have some time, because I want Dr. Grandjean and Dr. Morgan, who are administrators, to answer that question. Is it because we've had this conversation, for example, with Dr. Kari a million times. Is it quantity over quality, or is it quality over quantity in this environment? So I would like, in a little bit, Dr. Grandjean and Dr. Morgan, if we have at the end. So we should move to Joshua.
Yeah, let's get a couple of minutes for them to respond. Yes, go ahead. Dr. Grandjean. Yeah.
So what are we doing in this environment? Is it quantity or is it quality? So how are we approaching you, the administrator, to support us doing undergrad research?
Let me hand the mic to Grant there first, because he
he's shaking his head.
he was talking about me up front. Go ahead, Grant.
I think it's clear, or it's at least clear to me that that is a tough nut to crack. That is a tough nut to crack, because I do recognize that in many institutions that are largely dependent on undergraduate tuition, the number of students is going to be a driving factor. So that's to me a fairly high level conversation. I think about how Baylor has handled that, having what we call transformational education and pursuing national visibility through high quality scholarship is 3 of our 5 pillars of our strategic plan. So that goes all the way up to the regent level. So it's a little bit easier conversation for us to have. And of course, at the chair level, I can implement that value system in the way I evaluate faculty. But to get back to your question, on the spot, I'm having a hard time thinking of some helpful advice, because that's a tough question. What do you think, Pete? I mean, that's
well, Grant. I think you brought up some great points. It's embedded in the strategic plan of the institution, and I can tell you one of the things that we talked about when I first arrived at the University of Mississippi was I challenged the chairs and the faculty to express how their programs were relevant. How do we know that our degree programs are relevant? And then what makes us unique? And I think if you're talking about, Deborah, if you're talking about, how do you attract undergraduate students, and how do you maintain those tuition dollars to keep the doors open, if you will, I think it's being able to express the unique experience that you can provide that might be different, and that would be different from, say, your competitors. One of those things is the development of critical thinking and the experiential learning and the firsthand experiences that you might get with your faculty versus an undergraduate student coming to an R1 institution where it's recognized that there is a strain on time, and how you structure the research process so that you can include undergraduates as that primary focus. So I think if you could express, hey, undergraduates are a primary focus, undergraduate experiential learning is unique to us, and here's how it is because it's embedded in the fabric of our curriculum. I'm going to go back to that. Grant, you telling me to stop?
No, I was gonna, no. Never. I thought of a specific example of what you're describing.
Go ahead.
I was raising my hand, not telling you to stop.
Okay. Well, real quick, I think one of the things that we did with respect to SACS accreditation, our QEP, our quality enhancement plan, was embedding critical thinking at the lower levels, the 100 and the 200 levels, or the freshman and the sophomore level of classes, right? So go back and do that. And then with respect to strategic planning, I think it's very important to embed that as a top priority. as Grant was talking about, one of the 3 pillars of their strategic plan is developing, undergraduate, the undergraduate experience through critical thinking and experiential learning, which research is part of. I don't know that a research project has to result from this, but if you teach the scientific method, you're talking about the critical thinking, like how do you formulate a question, a research question that can be examined empirically. I mean, that's difficult, and it takes some time to develop that, but that's something that you can express as being unique to the liberal arts experience. Just one last thing. I went to an undergraduate, a university where there weren't graduate studies except for in 1 or 2 departments. So the undergraduate experience was the primary focus, and I wouldn't trade that for anything. So I can tell you, it's just expressing that, being able to express it, but actually embedding it into the strategic plan of an institution.
And we're now in a strategic planning process at SUNY Plattsburgh. So I'm thinking about Vincent's comments about the priorities, and maybe that's something we should be thinking about here. We're running, the clock is running down. I know Josh Beatty has been patiently waiting to say something. Go ahead, Josh, sorry to make you wait. Unmute yourself, please.
So Jonathan, thanks very much. And I will make this very quick. First, thanks especially to the faculty and most especially the student and graduate presenters. I've been tremendously impressed here. My name is Joshua Beatty. I'm with Feinberg Library. And what I wanted to do was mention at least one small way in which the library tries to support student research. We want to make as much student research available as possible through the SUNY Open Access repository. We've been doing this for a number of years now with some success. This becomes publicly available and archived, so secure student research. And we're happy to work with any faculty and students who are doing research. I would be happy to, if someone could open the chat, I would be happy to post a link to this and to give my email address for more information.
Thanks, Josh. I'm going to try and open the chat. And I know, Joel Parker, you've been waiting to, you've had your hand raised. You had something to add, to contribute.
So much to add. I probably don't have time to go into it. But first, I was going to say that I think we're talking about, it's nice to hear from Baylor and Harvard and those guys, but SUNY Plattsburgh is really uniquely different, and there's a big difference in culture in how undergraduate research works, and understanding that and then trying to convince faculty outside of the sciences how our culture sort of works is a challenge in and of itself. I think we're in terms of how to sell this. I mean, I agree with the who was, I forgot, it was one of the, or Peter was talking about, how to embed it in the curriculum and sell all that. I mean, biology is doing that to the hilt. But one other thing I think we need to do is we need to take the undergrads who are successful, like the 3 here, and biology, we're selling the hell out of the ones who get into Berkeley, the ones who go on to vet school and med school. We're trying to get them out there, and that can sort of be recruitment. That suddenly, if you use the success stories of undergraduates who are successful at research, and that can become the recruiting stories that will up the numbers, so you can start pulling them in. And so you have to, you can sort of snowball, I guess.
Thank you. And we're out of time. And I just wanted to thank everyone. Andreas, thank you for your leadership today. And I'd like to thank our students, Lauren and Lindsay and Rihanna. Right, Rihanna, thank you. And also Grant and Pete and Zach and Lisa for joining this. It was a very engaging conversation. I think that we should continue this conversation at some future point. Thank you again, everybody. Have a great day. Be well and be safe. Thanks again, Andreas. Take care. Bye-bye.